Sorry, my voice.
No. I wasn't thinking.
Or being satisfied about what you have. That's very important. I have example for a person who's satisfied about how life looks like, and you have many examples, not only just this person. So, like people have diseases, or people have issue, or people not qualify for anything, and still satisfied about their life. Some other people not satisfied about what they have. Maybe they have better than the other people, but still not satisfied. And you can see them, and you can feel them. Satisfied person, usually these people they trust themselves, or they have confidence. They treat other people nice, and they don't let other people give up about something. And usually these people, you see them, they are smiling. And if someone not satisfied, you'll see them like not smiling. They are very straight, and they give you negative energy. And once when they talk to you about something, why don't they're trying to make you feel you can do better than what you have right now. Like you can be in better job, you can be in better education, you can be in better life. Why you stuck in this situation? You can be better. So I guess when you see someone talk to you like this and you're satisfied about yourself, you don't need to give them the chance. Someone looks pretty and someone not pretty enough like her. So the situation was Leah wasn't listening to anyone. I'm not talking about the Leah story. I'm talking about what Leah did in her life to be successful and having 6 kids or 6 boys and one girl. And Rachel, she stayed a long time to have babies or kids. So what makes Leah, you didn't read about Leah, she was jealous, or she was angry, or wasn't saying why I'm not like my sister, why God makes me like this. She was satisfied about what she had, and she started being nice to her husband, Jacob, and nice to also her sister. When her sister get pregnant, she helped her, and also she wasn't saying, no, I don't care about my sister. She's still strong. She feels confident. She wasn't like, that's why, because she's satisfied, I guess, about being not pretty, or being not, people making funny about her because she's not pretty. If you read the Bible, no one accepted her. So I guess what she did right. She didn't pay attention about Jacob when he say, no, I need Rachel, not Leah. She didn't pay attention. She's still wife. She did what she's supposed to do, like helping her sister, taking care of her family, taking care of her husband, and God loves Leah. You see the story. Leah, she's the mother of most nations in the world. So when I be satisfied in my stuff or my life, I guess I can upgrade myself. But if I'm not satisfied, I face many problems. Not having my job, not having my life, not having with my family, I feel like they were running faster than me. Just be satisfied, like many examples. Think about people in hospitals. People in hospitals be satisfied about staying in hospitals, and their dream already stopped. The other people outside, you have job, you have family, you have car, you have nice life, and you're still not satisfied. If you just give yourself time, think about other people, they have many problems in their life, and just satisfy about it. Just think about this point. Maybe it can give you power, or can push you up to do something better. some people like give you advice about, like I said before, some people give you advice to be better, like better than what you have. If they are right, if you tried to do what they said, and you feel like it's not gonna work for you, just leave it. Just keep going about what you have. Because I'm satisfied about what I'm doing, and there's other people better than me. I'm very sure when I be satisfied, God will give me more. Because I wasn't like in Egypt. I have exam in Egypt. I was working in a big hotel like Hilton, Ramses Hilton, and I said I'm not satisfied. It's many people they like to work in this hotel. I wasn't satisfied. I don't know why. Maybe evil or something. So I'm saying a real story. So I wasn't happy. I wasn't smiling. I was really aggressive. Then I found me and other guys who start talk about the situation. So I guess my negative energy start being with everyone. So I found all of us were not gonna work in this place anymore. For some reason, something happened in the economy or something. I don't remember. So all of us were not gonna work in this hotel anymore. So what's happened? One of my friend, he started working different job, different career. I stayed in home like a year. I can find job. The situation in Egypt is not nice like here. So I stayed like a year. I started thinking I wasn't satisfied about what I had. Then I found myself now. I need just one day or just tell them I'm okay, I'm fine with this job. I don't want to leave it again. So sometimes you leave something because you don't satisfy about it, and then you find yourself, wow, I was fine. Wow, what I did for myself. So maybe I know also I have many stories about not being satisfied. Someone, I don't want to say names or any example, someone was trying to get to be like teacher, and he was really smart guy, and someone else told him he cannot be teacher because many things. So this guy, he stopped his dreams and he started working different field. It's not his job. And also when he worked in different field, he found like other guys that start treat him bad because this is not his place. So what's happened? You did something wrong for someone when you tell him this is not your place, this is not your area, this is not your life. So you need to find something else. You don't know what you're doing really. Maybe someone lose the chance to upgrade himself. Like I live in right now I live in countryside, and I try to live here in downtown or city, but in the city, for someone like me, I'm talking about my situation, like I'm from different country, but I have been here 8 years. So when I came here in the beginning, I found myself, I'm not satisfied about my education, the way how I grew up over there, everything. Then day by day, I said, okay, I don't want to stay with people, maybe they have many, or they are better than me for something. So I like to stay away, just upgrade myself, work hard, make myself better, so I can be satisfied. I wasn't satisfied in the beginning. The first year when I came here, I found myself, I have hard time to find a nice job. I have to do something. I cannot be just like jump from different countries and you have to make it like this. No, you have to upgrade myself. But I was satisfied about one point. God will give me more. God will give me more. That's what I was satisfied about it. I talked to many people about something before, about why I need to do this, I need to do this. They said, here, you will see many people in the city, they will not accept people from different countries or anything, but same like Leah. Leah also, she wasn't accepted by the other people. So my situation, like, I tried to fix. I don't want to talk about myself, but that's my example from myself. I start being satisfied. That's make me have power about myself. Then I don't want to leave the story about Leah because this is the main subject, my subject. Like I said,
Karen, do you think that, are you all familiar, I mean, I know you all know the story of Leah, but do you want to read it again in Genesis? Like, do you want to hear her words and things like that, or maybe we should read Genesis chapter 29 together? What do you think, Karen?
yeah, if you want to read about, but
We just maybe see some of the words. Like I was thinking, when not the story, but
small things. Like,
just small things. Like for example, in Genesis, let's turn to Genesis 29, and let's read just verses 16 through 18.
Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were delicate, but Rachel was beautiful of form and appearance. Now Jacob loved Rachel, so he said, I will serve you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter.
So what words jump out at you in those few verses? How is Leah described? Some of you, the translation is her eyes were delicate. Some of you, what? Dim, weak, delicate. Like the Bible is actually trying to be very delicate in describing her, but yet still pointing out the fact that that was her strongest characteristic, is her unattractiveness, is her degree of physical unattractiveness. And when the Bible describes Rachel, it says that she had a lovely figure and was beautiful. She had a lovely form. I mean, she wasn't just beautiful. I mean, she was physically beautiful. Her body was beautiful. She was very beautiful. And so Jacob agreed to work for Rachel 7 years. And you know, of course, that he was tricked, and so her father tricked him into marrying Leah, and then he worked in order to get Rachel. He had to work another 7 years. He gave him Rachel, but he told him he has to work another 7 years. So he didn't work 7 years for Leah and 7 years for Rachel. He worked 14 years for Rachel. One of the things too that to me speaks volumes. Let's see, verse. Okay. So after their wedding night, we can read just even first part of verse 25. So after they had the wedding night, and he tricked him and he sent him Leah instead of Rachel. And so in the morning, Jacob says, verse 25, when the morning came, there was Leah, exclamation mark. In the morning, there was Leah.
yeah,
It's so emotionally profound. There's an exclamation mark. There was Leah. Like just the thought that he married Leah, just for her, after they had whatever night they had, right, a beautiful wedding night, and she, who through her life was known for her lack of beauty, whatever she experienced that night, the affection she received, which I'm sure she very much enjoyed, to have the exact opposite reaction in the morning when he says, there is Leah, exclamation mark. Think about her feelings. Think about her feelings. reaction of Jacob seeing that it was you, after you had the intimacy together, and she, of anyone, needed that, to be loved, to be desired, to feel all of those, feelings of love, physically and emotionally, and then to be, Jacob's reaction to it being Leah, that the Bible puts it, there was Leah. I mean, that's a paragraph by itself with an exclamation mark. So think about the feelings and emotions of being Leah. And actually, Karen, when he said, recommended that he talked about doing this topic, ever since he told me that, I've been thinking about Leah. Like, I never really gave much thought to what it was like to be Leah, or to what she experienced. We take it superficially, we take the story superficially, that, Rachel was beautiful and Leah was not, and yet, because God looks at the inner being, he chose to come from Leah, and we know that her fourth son, Judah, is the lineage of the kings and ultimately Christ. And we take that very shallow, or at least I took it very shallow, until Karen said, what was that like to be Leah? And he said, I'd like to prepare and give this lesson. But ever since he said that, I've actually been reading about what is it like to have been Leah. Sorry to interrupt, but I thought it'd be nice for us to read it together.
No, that's
Good.
Like Susan, she said about Leah, she was someone who's not in love with her. He's not in love with her. He loves her sister. So for many years, and think about at this point, you treat someone not thinking about you, thinking about someone else. That's enough.
Meanwhile, he was working the second 7 years.
Then he works another 7 years, so 14 years to get Rachel. But the good thing
I missed your first point that you just said. I was trying to understand
Mhm.
what were you saying just now?
No, I
Can you
said
repeat it?
when you stay with someone or you live with someone, he's not in love with you. Like I don't love you, but we have to stay together.
Right.
So that's enough for someone. That's too much, really. When you live with someone treating you like you're just something to get something else or whatever.
So, yeah.
But the good thing about Jacob also, he was a real man. He was a good man. He didn't treat her bad. Even when he got Rachel, he still
Right. So he didn't.
Leah stayed with him. He didn't say, "Yo, go away." No, he is still
He
treating
honored
her nice. Yeah. So I guess that's why, because God loves Leah. God, like I said, God gave her sons, six boys, one girl, and you see Jesus Christ also from Judah. Judah is the last son of Leah. So there's many things about Leah, not about Rachel or Rachel. I guess you got my message right, and being satisfied and smiling for people, and that's make people, other people, when you smile, that's make people feel like you are in power, you are strong. But when I see someone like not satisfied about life, why I stay with them? Like I like to stay with people satisfied. That's a very important thing. Like I never heard like about Leah. She said something both negative, or she wasn't acting not nice to anyone. I see the Bible was saying God loves. That's very important comment thing in the Bible. God loves Leah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have a question, or question / statement.
Mhm.
So when you say like someone is satisfied, do you mean so? Because I think I didn't understand it as well as I should have. So when you say satisfied, what do you mean by when someone is satisfied with what they have?
Fulfilled, I think.
Yeah, like
I think a better word may be content.
Yeah.
okay, maybe someone satisfied, like you have to be in hard situation, like situation like Leah. But there is other people here in this real life. They are in hospitals. Like okay, how to be satisfied? I go look in hospitals. I go look with people. They live in places they really need help, and they have disease, they have stuff, and they don't have medication. So that's make me I feel I'm satisfied. I still have my legs, I have my hands. That's enough for me. You don't need to think about too
What
much
you don't
stuff.
have.
Yeah, you don't need just
The material.
just
You don't necessarily need the material
Yes.
things. Yeah. But you know, one thing that actually about your story,
Mhm.
do you think? I mean, obviously, God works in mysterious ways, right? I mean, if He wants to really teach you something, by you going through that experience in Egypt, when you're saying I wasn't satisfied, actually that brought you closer to God, right? Because otherwise, you would have just kept on going.
Mhm.
But sometimes you have to go through hardships
Yes.
and losing a job to really appreciate what you had.
Mhm.
But the end result of all that is not about the job. It got you closer to Christ.
Mhm.
So when you're talking about satisfaction, you know, worldly satisfaction, it can actually be, well, it is. It's significantly more than that.
Mhm.
You know, it's about your salvation. It's bringing you closer to Christ. So what happened to you was not a bad thing. It was actually a good thing.
I'm really glad you brought that up because that was my question. I was going to ask, is it okay sometimes, or is it beneficial to not be satisfied at one point?
Yes. if-
Because it does make you search for that satisfaction, and with not every single person goes through that dramatic change right away, but some people do. Well, in the search for satisfaction, get closer to God, but some people stray away from it because they find other means to be
But was he that
satisfied.
close to? Was he that close? I mean, I see where you're so. You want to improve. You want to grow. There's nothing wrong with that.
I mean, God uses
But was he?
everything.
Yeah, was he close? Was he close to God then also to have these two factors weighing against one another?
So actually, you know, Karen said that he never heard Leah complain or any of those things. Though we see that Rachel, the beautiful,
Mhm.
gorgeous Rachel,
Mhm.
that was loved by everyone, and Jacob, you know, worshipped the ground she walked on. We see her that she was jealous that she couldn't have children like Leah.
Right.
But we actually miss in the names of her children the growth of Leah. So I think it would actually be helpful because
Mhm.
Leah learned that, like what Karen was saying, that through his experiences, he learned how to be satisfied. And so did Leah. So, you know, let's actually read those verses together. If we can go if someone can read for us verses 31 and 32.
When the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. So Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben. For she said, the Lord has surely looked on my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me.
Okay, so she desired still to be loved. She desired, like we all desire. Actually, being loved is one of the most basic, innate in all of us human desires, is to be loved. And Leah was no different. She desired to be loved. And when she saw that, did I miss something?
I'm just
Okay.
showing you that this one says.
This one says hated, yeah. So actually, in some translations, again, the Bible tries to be very kind, but there's some translations that are more literal and said that Leah was hated, okay? Because she was extremely unattractive, like it was her most noticeable feature. And so she was unloved, she was hated. But God loved her. And actually she says here, when God saw my misery, and Reuben actually, like Ra'ubin, saw a son. Ra'ubin, see my son. But there's another actually, there's the different Hebrew word actually is seen my misery and gave me a son or something like that. But the idea is that God saw her misery. And Leah realized that God saw her misery. And she had hoped that giving him, as any woman giving, you know, her husband a firstborn son, especially, you know, in the Middle Eastern tradition, that's like very big and even still today. So she really felt that she had hope that Jacob would then love her because she gave him the first son, and she gave him a son. And then the next verse, someone can read for us 33.
Then she conceived again and bore a son, and she said, because the Lord has heard that I am unloved, He has therefore given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon.
Okay.
Mm.
Simeon is God heard.
Mhm.
Okay? So first God saw her misery. Then God heard.
Mhm.
Okay? And so she begins to see in her life God's work. Does it say anything about Jacob's heart being changed towards her?
Mhm.
No. Okay. So let's read verse 34. Sorry. Can we read verse 34?
She conceived again and bore a son, and said, Now this time my husband will become attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore his name was called Levi.
Levi means to join. Okay?
Mm.
So God saw her misery.
Mhm.
God heard her, and then he gave her Levi to join. Again, that desire to be loved by Jacob, to be unified, so that Jacob would finally, like Karen said, all of those years, he never sees, like, she doesn't exist. You know, if he sees her, it's not in a lovely way, okay? She's unloved. But at best, he doesn't see her, at best.
Mm.
So, I think then let's read verse 35.
And she conceived again and bore a son, and said, Now I will praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah. Then she stopped bearing.
Mm.
Okay. What happened with this son? What happened with this son? She conceived again, and when she gave birth, she said, This time what? Who's she praising? Who's she seeking?
Lord.
The Lord. Okay? The first son, she noticed that God heard her. Jacob didn't. Jacob hated her. She was unloved by Jacob. But she said, God heard me, and I will name him, see a son. He sees the gift that she sees the gift that God gave.
Mhm.
The second son, she says, God heard me. And again, she's looking for the love of Jacob. The third son, she names him Levi. Levi is the great ancestor, great grandfather of Moses and Aaron and all the priestly ranks. And she says, God will join Jacob to me because I've given him this third son. But between Levi and Judah, she finally actually lifted up her eyes off of Jacob and onto God. And she says, I will praise the Lord. This son is no longer for who? For Jacob. This son was for who? God. And this son came, from this son came who? Jesus Christ. Okay? So she no longer sought the desire and love of Jacob. She went well beyond Jacob to God. Okay? And it is from that realization that salvation came, that Christ came. And so that satisfaction, like Karen was saying, you experience. You experience seeking what all of us as human beings desire, which is to be loved. But as you go through life's journey, you realize that that love that you're seeking cannot be from another human being. Okay? Jacob was in love with love. And Leah was in love with love. But she grew to learn to love and receive that love from God and not from another human being, Jacob. And even Rachel, who also, like all of us, wanted to be loved, and she had everything we wanted, right? She was beautiful, she had a gorgeous figure, her husband worshipped the ground she walked on, he served for her 14 years, but yet she was unsatisfied because she couldn't bear children. And she's the one who actually envied her sister. And so it's an amazing, it's an amazing love triangle, but the story here is really, number one, desire. We all have those desires, okay? Number two, disappointment. And we go through life's disappointments, okay? We put our hopes in things that never happen. We put our hope in people who hurt us and disappoint us. She hoped the wedding night would make Jacob love her. She hoped Reuben would make Jacob love her. She hoped Simon would make Jacob love her. She got to Judah and she's like, God loves me. I don't need Jacob's love. And it's actually in that time when Jacob really began to respect her. And maybe throughout Jacob's life, it took him a while to learn that lesson too. And I don't know if you guys remember the story, but when he goes to meet Esau and he's afraid of the wrath of Esau, he puts the concubines, them and their children first, then Leah and her children, and then Rachel. Okay? So throughout her life, she had a constant reminder, do not go back and look for Jacob's love. Your love comes from the Lord. And God didn't give her the love of one man, Jacob. He gave her 6 sons. He gave her 6 men who loved her, despite what she looked like. Okay?
Yeah, and she's the mother of most nations.
Yes, and from her came Christ, the Son of God, which is what every woman and what Rachel wept for, is because when she was barren, she realized that, you know, that was the big sorrow, that the Messiah could not come from your lineage.
So when Rachel had her servant sleep with Jacob, and then Leah got jealous and had her servant sleep with Jacob, was that her being satisfied?
Well, it was still a journey. She was still seeking to have more children and still want to draw Jacob to her. She's a human being, and just like all of us are. But she really learned with Judah. She learned in Judah to really seek God's praise first and to really seek God's love first. And it actually, like what Karen said, like we know that she still ministered to her sister. And as a matter of fact, if you know the rest of the story, like her son Reuben found mandrakes when he was out, and mandrakes were reputed to cause fertility, and so she gave her sister the mandrakes. So she actually traded the mandrakes for a night with Jacob with her sister. So she didn't really hold out from her sister. She really still cared for her sister, and she, even though her sister was more comely and more beautiful and was loved by Jacob, she still, I mean, the beauty of the Bible is it doesn't really just completely take away the weaknesses of people. She still wanted, obviously, any human being wants to live with someone who loves them. But she learned the lesson to seek God first. Seek first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things will be added to you. And actually, in the end, it was Leah who was buried with Abraham and with Sarah, and then eventually Jacob when they brought his bones back from Egypt. So it was Leah who was given that honor, and not Rachel.
You said something. No, thank you. You said something about if you work about point or keys in yourself, trying to be better than what you have right now. That's different from being satisfied. Because I'm satisfied about what I have, but I still have plan to upgrade myself. Yeah, that's a different story. Yeah, but if you are not satisfied, you cannot upgrade yourself, I guess. Because if I'm not satisfied, everything I see in my life is not gonna work for me, because I'm not satisfied about anything. I don't know myself. So I guess, good point. I guess I'm done. If someone has a question, yeah, I can talk about your question.
I think it's also good that Christ reminds us that we will never thirst again if we have Christ living inside of us. And if we're not feeling satisfied, then there's something wrong in our relationship with Christ. That maybe, yes, I come to church and support, but that's on the surface level. If I have Christ dwelling inside of me and I am connected to Christ, and the Holy Spirit is giving me the comfort, giving me the satisfaction, giving me that I don't need to thirst for things in the world.
Yeah, like I saw something on YouTube. Abuna Samuel, who shared this point about what he's talking about. He said, when you be close to God, the lights will come to your heart. So you will filter everything in your life. But if you stay away from God, you will have many stuff in your head, and you need answer for these questions. So I guess you're right. When I be close to God, I'll be satisfied. Will be so far, I'm not gonna be satisfied. That's what happened for me or for everyone. I guess Leah, very good example. There's many people, they have hard life more than Leah. But Leah, the way how she faced this situation was very smart. She didn't care about what Jacob was gonna say about her. She did her job. She was nice to her family. She was nice to everyone. She did right, really. I'm not saying any negative anything about Leah. Yeah,
that's a very good point. I like that she wasn't deterred, or I mean, she was doing what she knows is to be right.
Yeah, she wasn't
angry. She didn't let his behavior to affect her behavior.
Yeah. I like Leah.
how do you think that applies to choosing, because Leah, she didn't have a choice, right? And we have a choice today. How do you think that helps us today navigate the change in the way that we approach significant others today? What do you think about that?
Okay, like your question, like in this time we can change some stuff, but in their time we can. She can.
No, today we can choose, especially girls, right? Girls get to choose. Leah didn't. She didn't get to choose, right?
No, the girl, not all girls.
No, but he's saying in today's
No,
today
it's a little
culture.
culture. It's culture. No, Jason.
Girls don't get to choose.
I don't know what they're saying over there.
Jason, it's related cultures. It's cultures.
Almost
It's culture. Middle East cultures different from American culture. It's related culture. Some cultures, the girls still cannot change anything. There's related cultures, I guess.
So they have so you have arranged marriages. Is that what you're saying?
No.
No, that's what I'm saying.
But you know, Jason, I actually, so as I was reading about Leah, and this is not, I mean, this was I guess a historic, interpretation, or they were saying that Leah actually, so traditionally at that time, and if you recall, when they came to find a wife for Isaac, they sent him back to Sarah's home place to find a wife for Isaac, because it was traditional that you married someone from your family, from your tribe, right? So they actually said, this was an interpretation, that Leah was afraid that she would have to marry Esau, because she's the oldest and Esau was the oldest. And Esau was not a man of God, and that was known. And it was actually, they were saying that God had answered Leah's prayer first by allowing her to marry a godly man of Jacob and not Esau. So we can pray that God sends us a godly person. So maybe she didn't choose, but she actually through her prayers may have also been heard by God that she would not marry an ungodly person. So yeah, she took the scales. Yeah, because she was godly, and so and more so than Rachel.
Yeah, I
If
don't
you
know.
guys, you know the story when Rachel, when they all left, that Rachel took her father's like idols or something like that. So we can still see the difference between Leah and Rachel in their godliness, in their faithfulness. So I mean, I don't know that.
I didn't mean
just an
divorce. When I
interpretation.
say choose, I didn't mean divorce.
No,
I meant
no.
prior to marriage.
Right.
Women
Right.
get to choose who they
Right.
spend their
But
life.
we should be praying for that godly person in our life.
I guess where I was going with that is that it's better to find the right person than to live the way that Leah lived the whole life with someone who doesn't love you. I guess that's kind of the direction that I was trying to go with that. It's very important to choose
Leah's
carefully.
situation was different. Leah wasn't accepted by other people. That's why she accepted to be with someone just because her dad really did good thing for her.
Also
Bring
on
up
that,
the point
the-
Are you choosing or is God?
it's God choosing for you, right?
So when I pray about it, I mean,
But,
what
you know,
she's saying is that.
And tying to that, choosing is that, can you imagine that Leah knows the truth, that she's not being chosen,
Yes.
but she's still being obedient to her father saying, you go, even though she knows this isn't what he
I guess-
wants, you know?
Right.
This is the happiest point.
That's gotta be really hard, fearful to say, I'm going to somebody that doesn't want me.
Yeah. Well, look at Peter, a perfect example. I mean,
That's it,
I
Peter.
mean,
That's
he
it.
laid-
Peter said Peter's the rock. You know?
obviously.
Yeah, like when you apply for a job and you feel like when you apply for a job and then you feel like you are not qualified for this job, but you already accepted.
Right?
Yeah, that's
I
really
agree.
amazing.
But Leah had hope. She had hope that Jacob would love her. And like you said, it's not like their suitors were knocking down on her door. You know, this was like her chance, you know. And I think there's many times that we have relationships with people, with, you know, like you said, could be whatever work, could be a situation where we know it's not really for us, or this isn't gonna be the best thing for us, but we want it so bad that we want it to work out.
Emotional
And
thing.
we try and like ignore the other things, or think that maybe if once it starts, then things will fall into place.
Right.
And so, but one of the important things, and I know you guys aren't married yet, but this is a very important lesson for married people. And actually, not just for Leah, but for Rachel. Do not attempt to find satisfaction wholly in another person. They are a person flawed like you. They cannot fulfill all your desires. God didn't create them to. And you will set that relationship up for failure if you seek to fulfill godly desires in a human being. Okay? You can't. They can't. You can't fully satisfy someone. So the things that we're seeking, love, affection, significance, companionship, there's very, very lonely marriages. You can be very lonely in marriage. You can be very alone in marriage. You can feel rejected in marriage. You can all of those things inside your marriage. If God isn't first, you need to find those things in God first. And then instead of seeking to receive those in marriage, seek to give those. So we really understand marriage wrong. We think that all of those needs we have are going to be satisfied by a person, and they're not. They can't be. They have to be satisfied by God. But when you receive that satisfaction from God, you can actually then help give it to others. And that's really the understanding of godly marriage. And that's what Leah learned, and that's why she was honored, and that's why she is the great grandmother of Christ. That's why she is buried with Abraham and with Sarah. And not that Rachel, was not at all godly, but she had a lessons to learn as well. But Leah was actually able to learn those lessons very early on in life and to enjoy that, to enjoy being fulfilled and being satisfied in God first, and not continuing to seek those in someone else.
Also, no one told Leah why you stay with someone who is not loving you. Maybe someone told her, that's women, so together maybe they told her.
Are you still with her?
It was going so nice and it goes best.
You had him before you said
Yeah,
that.
because when you read about Jacob, there wasn't only Leah and Rachel, there was another women. He got married from another women also. Not only Leah and Rachel, there's another 3 or 4 other women. Yeah, he has kids with them. So no one of them, she said, why you stay with Jacob? Go find someone else. No, I guess maybe they told her this, but she didn't listen to them because she knows she's satisfied. This was a good one.
That's a great topic. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Thanks, Karen.
You're welcome. I'm very happy.
It was really good. Thank you. This is hot.
There was a lesson at the end of it.
You're on the fan.
Oh, it's good.